Hello, my name is Allison Warner and I am the Chief Editor of Orthodontic Products. Welcome back to In the Sterilization Room with Jackie, where we talk with infection control and prevention expert Jackie Dorst about what you need to know as you welcome back patients. For over 20 years, Jackie has been a consultant specializing in instrument sterilization and infection control and prevention in the dental setting. She holds degrees in microbiology and dental hygiene and has been a featured speaker at the American Dental Association and the American Association of Orthodontists. Knowing that you're looking for the latest information and guidance on how to protect your team and patients when the doors reopen, we're back again to talk about the latest guidance and issues relating to minimizing exposure to COVID-19 and establishing best practices in your office going forward. Jackie, glad to be back with you.
Thank you again, Allison. Last week was one of the busiest weeks I've ever had in my 30 years of consulting. As states started reopening and allowing orthodontic practices to see non-emergency patients, there were a lot of questions, a lot of phone calls, and of course then we had the AAO virtual meeting last weekend too. So lots of new information and lots of the good same basic standard precautions that we're reviewing as we reopen and going, does everybody have their ducks in order for safe patient care?
Definitely. Okay, well then let's get started. As practices ramp up and reopen, they're making sure they have the proper PPE. Supply has been an issue for weeks, if not months now. What are the most recent shortages you're hearing about as practices reopen?
Well, we're still with that respiratory protection for either the shortage of masks, whether it's a surgical mask or an N95 respirator, although I'm hearing offices are receiving their shipments now. They've been back ordered for 2 or 3 weeks, so a number of offices have called me. Many of them have received the international type mask, the K95s or the KN95s, and they'll call me with questions about, Jackie, this doesn't look like what we've seen in pictures, and they're concerned about fit, how to put it on, how to do the seal check on it. And I even had a couple of call from the AAO yesterday. What about the fit test? Is the fit test for an N95 respirator still required? And yes, it's still recommended by OSHA. However, during this crisis time, they have, OSHA has made an allowance for fit test kits are just not available. Now, I did a search on the line yesterday, looked at 3 different manufacturers of them, and it looks like they will start reshipping about mid-May, 1st of June. If they don't have a fit test for their N95 respirator, then they could contact the infection preventionist at their local hospital, ask them if they would do a fit test, or maybe even the fire department. The fire department, that's part of their PPE also. So they would have a fit test kit and they might be willing to help them out. But you know, the thing that's come up in addition to respiratory protection this week is the gowns. The isolation gowns. You know, when we're doing a arch wire change, even as you remove the arch wire, you get a few little splatters and splashes that come out. And then especially if you're doing a debond or a bonding, there's more of those aerosols. And this is the splatter zone. So it's better to have that solid front surface gown than it is the traditional jacket that many offices have worn, because it has to be snapped, zipped, or unbuttoned down the front. And now you've got to touch that contaminated area to remove it. Whereas with a gown, you just remove from the back, fold in on the contamination, and it's an aseptic or clean way to remove it. However, there's a real shortage of the gowns out there, both for disposable and reusable gowns. Yeah, so I'm having a lot of offices that are calling me with questions and then things that they've even read on social media.
Well, what's an alternative if what's an alternative if they can't get a hold of the gowns right now?
Well, I'm going to hold up an example of an disposable isolation gown, and you can see that shiny surface on it. This happens to be a fluid resistant, which they thought they needed in medical a lot. We really don't need fluid resistance in ortho or even very often in general dentistry. Might be a good idea for a dental hygienist using an ultrasonic scaler or an air polisher. But you see, it looks like it has almost a plastic coating on it, correct?
Right.
Now, I'm having some offices that are ordering the disposable gowns, and they're saying, Jackie, it says we can autoclave them. So we're going to autoclave these gowns. And my question is, are you washing them first? And they, well, no, we haven't. You can't sterilize or disinfect anything until it's clean.
Hmm.
That's one of the principles that we've learned. You have to, when you're using a disinfectant, you've got to clean the surface first,
Hmm.
and then you wet it with the disinfectant to leave it wet for the contact time on the label to kill all the pathogens. So that's a basic principle of same thing with any instruments. You've got to clean the instruments before you can sterilize the instruments.
Hmm.
Well, with these gowns, they're going to need to be washed. I really don't even understand the need for sterilizing a gown. We don't need sterile gowns. We need clean gowns,
Ah.
but washing them and drying them, say on the hot cycle of the dryer,
Mhm.
adequately sanitizes a gown for reuse. It's been the same for textile recommendations in medical and in hospitals and ambulatory surgery centers for many years.
Mhm.
The only time you would need a sterile gown is in the operating room, or say, an oral surgeon who is doing mandibular reconstruction or implant. Yeah, they
Mhm.
need sterile gowns, but not for us in the ortho. So as the shortage of disposable gowns is out there, I've asked for teams to look in alternatives of reusable gowns that are fabric, that are laundry, that they could reuse in their office. And I've had quite a few questions on that.
Mhm. So, what kind of gown should that be if it's fabric, and what should they do if they're having trouble getting access to them?
Well, I got one of my very favorite gowns that I love as a hygienist, and you can see it has friendly little toothbrushes and floss and everything on it. A little stand-up collar that gives the protection around there, and it's a lightweight polyester cotton fabric that is launderable and it's permanent press. So you take it out of the dryer and it's ready to put on. Long sleeves, open down the back, and look at this nice little knitted cuff that's very comfortable. I pull it and I can put my gloves up over the sleeve on this. So offices have been ordering these from uniform supply places. And if they could find them, even at their local uniform supply, although we know many of those stores are closed right now, but some of them even have found that there's shortages of these reusable gowns, that they're back ordered with the hospital supply places. I'm wondering, can we not get these sewn locally? There's a movement now to buy local to help restart our economy. All of the seamstresses in the communities that have been happily making masks, fabric masks, for healthcare workers to help preserve their N95 respirators,
Mhm.
for people to wear out in public, maybe they could help us by sewing some of these reusable launderable gowns. And then, of
Mm.
course, if you do these, then they are going to have to be laundered in the office. And a lot of orthodontic offices have called me in the last week, and they're putting in a washer and dryer in their office to accommodate washing these removable gowns.
Mm.
And OSHA has added in, because we're wearing these protective gowns or jackets,
Mhm.
that at the end of the day, the team, before they leave to go home, changes out of their scrubs. And if they have a washer dryer, it's preferable to launder those at the office. If they don't, they would put those in a plastic bag and take home with them
Mhm.
and launder, because they're not contaminated. The gown is what took the contamination, and that's what we're either throwing away with the disposable ones, or we're sanitizing by washing and drying in our office. So a couple of ways to manage that, and we're going to have to be creative during this PPE shortage time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it has been a challenge.
Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. What kind of calls have you been getting about instrument sterilization as practices reopen?
It's back to, again, as I've been doing webinars, and doctors and the team members have been seeing photos of sterilization rooms. They're calling me with, Jackie, we're using a dry heat sterilization. Can we package with this, put our instruments in packages as we've seen in your webinars? And if they're using like the Dentronics DDS 5000, you
Mhm.
can't package in that sterilizer. It does not have an FDA approval.
Mm.
If you want to stay with dry heat, then there is like a Cox sterilizer that you can use, that high temperature nylon because the heat's so high, you can't use the peel view pouches, the paper and plastic that normally are used in an autoclave. So that's the only way. And then you still have to have a second autoclave to sterilize the hand pieces because they can't be put in dry heat. So for many years, I've recommended autoclave, steam sterilization to orthodontic practices. And then they can easily, if they haven't been packaging their instruments prior to now, they can easily start using pouches, put their setups together in pouches, and then put those pouches on a tray to carry chairside. The most efficient and safest system is to use cassettes to put the instruments in. So I'm getting a lot of offices as they reopen, they're cleaning off their countertops, getting rid of all the clutter so that they can easily wipe down and disinfect the surfaces. And then they're looking at their sterilization room. How can we give those patients that visible reassurance of everything we're doing to protect their safety and well-being as they come into our orthodontic practices?
Okay. Well, speaking of patients, they are anxious and want to know that they're going to be safe during an appointment. How are offices
Oh, yeah.
communicating to their patients?
Well, first of all, they're doing a lot of social media.
Mm.
As they start to reopen, they're putting out those happy, upbeat messages. Yes, we're reopening. Yes, our office is going to look different when you come in, and maybe you even take photos or put a video on your social media about what the patients can expect, because they want the patients to know that we're going to take their temperature, maybe even with a forehead or with the disposable thermometers when they arrive. We're going to do a wellness screening on them, and we're going to ask them to wear a mask
Mhm.
and sanitize their hands when they come in. So a cute video that's upbeat and lets them know what to expect on the arrival, and that it's preferred that we only have the patient in the office. That's a great way of communicating, putting signage in the office about, they're going to see a screen in front of the reception desk now, that sneeze screen that is going to be there as extra protection. And then everybody's concerned about, is the sterilization and the disinfection that you're doing effective against the coronavirus? And I know a lot of companies are putting out even posters or graphic information about, hey, our products, this is the product that we use in our office, and it is effective against the coronavirus, like with the Optum One here, that it has an EPA registration number that's effective. So photos, videos, signage, welcome back, put a hand wash sign up. Hey, this is where you sanitize your hands, and have that alcohol-based hand rub out. And I saw one cute video where they actually had a young patient. She looked like she was about 8 years old, and she was doing the happy birthday twice hand wash at the sink, showing everybody the correct technique. Let's put a little fun into it to give that happy reassurance of how safe everything's going to be in our ortho practices.
Great. Well, I think this is great information for our viewers. Jackie, thank you again for being with us this week.
You're very welcome, Allison. I'm happy to help as we safely get back to work in our orthodontic practices.
Great. Well, we will be back next week for the next episode of In the Sterilization Room with Jackie. If you would like to view previous episodes or get the latest orthodontic industry news, visit our website, orthodonticproductsonline.com. We are here to help you get back to work. Until next time, take care and be safe.